You probably think you're bad with money. You stress about it. You worry about it. You lie awake at 2 a.m. running numbers in your head, wondering if you're falling behind, wondering if everyone else has this figured out except you. You scroll past people online with bigger houses, nicer cars, and lives that look effortless, and a quiet voice whispers that you're losing some race you never even agreed to enter. But here's something nobody has ever told you. The very fact that you're worried might be the strongest evidence that you're actually good with money. Because the people who are truly bad with it don't worry at all. They don't lie awake. They don't run the numbers. They don't feel the weight of a single dollar. They just swipe the card, ignore the balance, and move on with their day. Today, I'm going to walk you through 8 signs that you're actually good with money, even when it doesn't feel like it. 8 signs backed by behavior, not by your bank balance. And I'm willing to bet that by the time we reach the end, you're going to realize you've been far harder on yourself than the evidence ever justified. Sign number 5, in particular, is one that almost everybody gets completely backwards. Let's get into it. Before I give you a single sign, you need to understand one foundational truth about how money actually works. Because if you get this wrong, every sign I give you will land on deaf ears. Here it is. Being good with money has almost nothing to do with how much money you have. Read that again. It's not about the size of your paycheck. It's not about the number in your account. It's about your behavior, your habits, the small, quiet, unglamorous decisions you make over and over again when nobody is watching and nobody is clapping. There are people earning $500,000 a year who are completely broke. No savings. No safety net. One missed paycheck away from total collapse. And there are people who never earned more than a modest salary in their entire lives who quietly retired as millionaires. There's a famous book about this, where researchers went looking for the typical American millionaire. They expected mansions and sports cars. Instead, they found ordinary people in ordinary homes who drove used cars and lived well below their means. The difference was never the income. The difference was always the behavior. So if you've been measuring your worth by your balance, you've been staring at the wrong scoreboard this whole time. Let's look at the right one. 8 signs. Here we go. Sign number 1. You actually feel guilty when you spend money. This is the one that flips everybody's brain inside out, because most people are convinced that feeling guilty about money is a flaw, a problem, something to fix. It's not. It's a signal. That little pang of friction you feel right before you spend on something you don't really need, that's your financial awareness working exactly the way it's supposed to. It means you're conscious. It means you're paying attention. It means money isn't just leaking through your fingers while you stare at your phone. Picture 2 people at a checkout counter. The first one grabs the impulse item, taps the card, feels nothing, and walks out. The second one hesitates. Picks it up. Puts it back. Picks it up again. Feels that flicker of, do I actually need this? That second person isn't weak. That second person has a working radar. The first one is flying blind. People who are genuinely bad with money feel none of that friction. They buy the thing. They feel nothing. They never once connect the purchase to the consequence down the road. But you feel the weight of the dollar before it leaves your hand. Now, I want to be careful here, because there's a line. You don't want this to curdle into constant anxiety or punish yourself over every cup of coffee. That's not healthy, and that's not the goal. But a little healthy hesitation before you spend is one of the clearest signs your instincts are pointed in exactly the right direction. The guilt was never your enemy. The guilt is your radar. And yours is switched on. But awareness alone doesn't build wealth. So let's talk about the sign that separates the financially healthy from the financially drowning. In cold, hard numbers. Sign number 2. You pay your credit card off in full every single month. If you do this, I need you to understand just how rare you actually are. Roughly half of all Americans who carry credit cards carry a balance from month to month. They pay interest. They feed the bank. They let an interest rate north of 20% quietly devour their future, one statement at a time. It's one of the most expensive habits in modern life, and millions of people are trapped in it without ever realizing how much it's costing them. But if you pay your statement in full, every month, no balance rolling forward, no interest piling up, you've already beaten almost half the country before we even get going. Think about what you're actually doing. You're using the credit card exactly the way it was designed to be used, but never the way the bank hopes you'll use it. You collect the rewards. You get the purchase protection. You enjoy the convenience. And the bank? The bank gets nothing from you. No interest, no late fees, no penalty charges. Nothing. You are quite literally playing their game and winning it. Most people assume paying the card off in full is just basic, normal, expected behavior. It is not. It is a quiet superpower that half the population cannot pull off. And if you've got it, you're already standing in the top half of the country before we move a single inch further. But there's a sign even sneakier than this one that doesn't show up in what you spend, but in what you chose not to do when life finally handed you more. Sign number 3. Your lifestyle didn't explode when your income grew. Cast your mind back to the last time you got a raise, or a bonus, or a better job with a bigger paycheck. What happened next? For most people, the answer is brutal. The money came in, and the lifestyle immediately swelled up to swallow it whole. Bigger car, nicer apartment, better everything. The income climbed, and the savings stayed flat as a pancake. This is called lifestyle inflation, and it is the single quietest killer of wealth on the planet. It's the exact reason people pulling in $300,000 a year can still lie awake feeling broke. They earn more, so they spend more, so they're never actually any further ahead. They just have nicer things and the same empty savings account. But if you got a raise and didn't immediately upgrade your entire existence, if some of that extra money actually stuck around and stayed, if you kept the same reliable car, stayed in the same reasonable place, and let the gap between what you earn and what you spend get wider instead of staying frozen, then you've pulled off something most high earners never figure out in their entire careers. You separated your income from your ego. You stopped letting a bigger paycheck automatically mean a bigger life. You let your wealth grow instead of letting your spending eat it alive the moment it arrived. That's not boring. That's not deprivation. That's mastery. And mastery is exactly what compounds into real wealth over time. But the next sign is the one people are almost embarrassed to admit, and they shouldn't be, because it's secretly a flex. Sign number 4. Your investments are boring. Here's a truth that nobody on financial social media wants to say out loud, because boring doesn't get views. The best investors are almost always the most boring investors. If your money is sitting quietly in low-cost index funds, slowly compounding in the background, and you barely even check on it, you're doing it right. If you're not chasing the hottest crypto coin, not gambling your savings on meme stocks, not jumping on whatever your coworker swears is about to 10x by the end of the week, you're winning, even though it doesn't feel exciting. Because here's what actually happens to the exciting investors. They buy at the top when the hype is screaming. They panic and sell at the bottom when fear takes over. They chase the next big thing, and the next, and the next, and they bleed money the entire way down. The thrill of it costs them a small fortune over the years. Meanwhile, the boring investor does almost nothing. They just keep buying the same unremarkable index fund, month after month, year after year, decade after decade. And they quietly end up wealthy, while the thrill seekers are still telling stories about the one trade that almost worked. There's a reason one of the greatest investors who ever lived said investing should be more like watching paint dry than going to a casino. If your portfolio makes for absolutely terrible dinner party conversation, congratulations, you probably understand investing better than the loudest person in the room. Boring isn't the absence of a strategy. Boring is the strategy. But there's a mental habit that's even more revealing than what you put your money into. It's the way your brain prices the entire world around you. Sign number 5. You think about purchases in terms of time, not just money. This is the one almost everybody gets backwards. When most people look at something they want to buy, they ask a single question. Can I afford this? Do I have the money in the account? But people who are genuinely good with money ask a completely different question, almost automatically. They ask, how many hours of my life does this actually cost? Let me make it concrete. Say you take home roughly $25 an hour after taxes. That $200 gadget you've been eyeing isn't really $200. It's 8 hours of your life, a full working day. Gone, traded away, never coming back. That nice dinner out isn't $50. It's 2 hours at your desk. When you start seeing money as frozen time, as hours of your one finite life converted into currency, everything shifts. You stop asking whether you can afford something, and you start asking whether it's genuinely worth the hours you bled to earn it. This single mental shift is one of the most powerful wealth-building habits in existence, and it's almost impossible to unsee once you've seen it. And if you already think this way, even just sometimes, even just on the bigger purchases, then your brain is quietly wired for wealth in a way most people's never will be. Most people go their entire lives never once making this connection. They trade their hours for money and then trade that money away without ever realizing they were spending time the whole time. You figured it out. That's rarer than you think. But the next sign isn't about how you think at all. It's about something you've quietly built without ever giving yourself a shred of credit for it. Sign number 6. You have money set aside that you haven't touched. It doesn't have to be enormous. It doesn't have to be 6 months of expenses sitting pretty in a high-yield account. It could be $500. It could be $1,000. The amount is not the point. The point is that it exists, and that you've left it alone. Because here's the brutal reality of the world we live in. A huge share of people cannot cover a surprise $400 expense without borrowing the money or putting it on a card. They have nothing standing between them and the next emergency. No buffer, no cushion, no wall. They live one flat tire, one broken tooth, one bad week away from financial chaos. But you've got something tucked away. Money you don't raid. Money that just sits there quietly, doing its single most important job, which is being ready. And every single time you felt the urge to spend it and didn't. Every time you left that money alone, even when something shiny was calling your name, you proved that you understand something most people never grasp. That the purpose of money isn't only to be spent. Sometimes the entire purpose of money is just to exist. To sit there and give you options. To give you the ability to say no, to walk away, to handle the curveball without panic. If you've built even a small wall like that, you are more financially secure than nearly half the people around you, no matter what your balance says. But the next sign isn't about your money at all. It's about who you've quietly become as a person. Sign number 7. You're not impressed by other people's expensive stuff. This is one of the deepest signs of financial maturity that exists, and almost nobody ever talks about it. So pay attention here. When you see someone roll up in a brand new luxury car, gleaming and expensive, what do you actually feel? If your gut reaction is admiration, envy, that little sting of I want that too, then the status game still has its hooks in you. And that's okay, it has its hooks in most people. But if your honest reaction is something more like, I wonder what that's costing them every single month, then something has genuinely shifted inside you. Something important. Something most people never reach. Because the people who actually build lasting wealth figured out a long time ago that most expensive stuff isn't a sign of wealth at all. It's a sign of spending. The flashy car is very often financed to the hilt. The enormous house is frequently mortgaged right up to the ceiling. The designer everything is regularly sitting on top of a quiet mountain of debt that nobody posts about. Real wealth, the actual kind, is usually invisible. It lives in accounts you can't see, in investments nobody brags about, in the calm, unbothered security of a person who simply doesn't need to prove anything to anyone, ever. When you stop being impressed by stuff, a magical thing happens. You stop needing to buy stuff to impress other people. And that single shift, that quiet internal change, saves you a genuine fortune over the course of a lifetime. The need to look rich is one of the most expensive needs a human being can have. If you've let go of it, even partly, you've escaped the exact trap that keeps most people running on the treadmill forever. And that brings us to the final sign. The one that ties every other sign together into a single, unbreakable habit. Sign number 8. You can say no to things you can easily afford. This is the ultimate test. And it's the complete opposite of what most people assume discipline even means. Most people think being good with money is about saying no to things you can't afford. But that's not discipline. That's just survival. That's just not being reckless. The real, rare, true mark of financial strength is being able to say no to the things you absolutely can afford. The vacation you could easily swing. The upgrade you could comfortably justify. The purchase that wouldn't even leave a dent in your account. Because when you can look at something, know with full certainty that you have the money for it, and still calmly decide that it's just not worth it to you, you've achieved something genuinely rare. You've put yourself in the driver's seat of your own money instead of letting your money drive you. You're not ruled by impulse. You're not ruled by the moment. You're not ruled by what's trending or what your neighbor just bought. You're ruled by your own priorities, your own goals, your own personal definition of what actually matters in your life. That is the final boss of personal finance. And if you can beat it, even some of the time, then you have a level of control over your money that most people will chase their entire lives and never quite catch. So let's bring all 8 of these together. You feel the honest weight of your spending. You pay your card in full. Your lifestyle didn't balloon the moment your income grew. Your investments are gloriously boring. You think in terms of hours of your life, not just dollars. You've got a cushion you refuse to touch. You're no longer impressed by other people's expensive things. And you can say no to things you could easily afford. Now here's what I want you to do. Go back through those 8 signs in your head and honestly count how many of them sound like you. Don't talk yourself out of the ones you've genuinely earned. And here's the thing I need you to really hear. If you saw yourself in even 3 or 4 of these, you are doing dramatically, profoundly better than you feel like you're doing. Because every single one of these signs is a behavior, not a salary, not an account balance, not a number on a screen, a behavior. And behaviors are the exact thing that build balances over time. The money always follows the habits. It always has, and it always will. So if you've been beating yourself up, lying awake, feeling like some kind of financial failure, measuring your real life against the highlight reels of total strangers on the internet, I want you to stop for just 1 second and actually look at the evidence in front of you. The worry you feel isn't proof that you're bad with money. The worry is proof that you care. And caring, combined with even a handful of these quiet habits, is the entire foundation that real wealth gets built on. Because being good with money was never about how much you have. It was always about what you do with what you've got. And if these signs sound like you, then you're already winning. You just haven't looked at the right scoreboard yet. If this video made you feel a little better about where you actually stand, hit the like button. And drop a comment below telling me how many of the 8 signs sounded like you. I read every single comment, and I genuinely love seeing where people land on this one. I'll see you in the next one.